Meow fucking meow. G'day, ladies and gentlemen. It's your resident racing virgin here, Fly Swatter, and we're back with another episode of, well, I don't know what to call these things, but it's a video explaining how to qualify. So pay attention, because if you don't understand what I'm saying the first time, you can just rewind the video and try to understand what I'm saying the next time around. So for those of you who aren't sure, let's ask the question, what is qualifying in Formula One and how does it work? Well, the definition I made up on the spot was that it's a series of 3 stages, which at its conclusion determines the race's starting position on the grid. Now we're going to go into more detail. Meow. There is one qualifying session made up of 3 qualifying stages. There is qualifying stage 1, also known as Q1 and will be referred to as Q1 for the rest of the video, which goes for 18 minutes long. Racers will go around the track, try to post their fastest lap times, and at the conclusion of Q1, racers who finished in the bottom 5, which is 16th to 20th, will be knocked out and you're essentially unable to progress into qualifying stage 2. Now let's pretend you were Sergio Perez like in this clip here and finished this particular qualifying session with a time of 1 minute 7 seconds and 672 milliseconds, which is 18th fastest in this particular session. You'd start the grid from 18th and join Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Russell and Kubica in the pits for the rest of the qualifying stage. And what comes after Q1? Well, it's qualifying stage number 2, also known as Q2, and will be called that through the rest of this video. So Q2 goes for 15 minutes long. At the conclusion of Q2, racers who finished in the bottom 5, being 11th to 15th, will be knocked out and will not progress into the next and final qualifying stage. Now let's imagine you were Danny Kvyat in this clip. You finish 11th position by posting a time of 1 minute 7 seconds and 168 milliseconds, which is 11th fastest in this particular session. You'd start the race from 11th position and join Sainz, Gasly, Grosjean and Norris in the pits for the rest of the qualifying session. And the top 10 drivers progress to qualifying stage numero el trio. And for those of you who don't speak Spanish, I'll translate that for you. That means qualifying stage 3. To conclude the qualifying session as a whole, we finish it off with qualifying stage 3, also known as Q3, and will be called that throughout the rest of the video. So Q3 goes for 12 minutes long. It's basically a top 10 shootout, and whoever gets the fastest time during this session will start the race in first, the second fastest will start the race in second, and the third fastest will start the race in third, and so on and so on and so forth, down the order until we reach 10th fastest in this session. Now, in this clip, I was racing as Bottas. I ended up finishing 5th in this stage. So I will now start the race from 5th position with Vettel, Ham Sandwich, Leclerc, Verstappen all finishing the session faster than me. And they're going to start in front of me in that order. Then you've got Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Albon, Perez and Raikkonen finishing below me, and thus will start the race behind me in that order. Now that qualifying is out of the way, that's it. We go straight into the race. But that's not all, folks. No. That's simply how qualifying works. But there's a whole bunch of strategy involved in qualifying. One shouldn't just go out willy-nilly and smash out as many laps as possible during qualifying. I hear someone at the back of the room shouting, "But why, Lord Fly Swatter? Why don't we go out willy-nilly and smash out as many laps as possible?" Well, the answer to that, my friend, is because the tyres you have available to use in qualifying, well, those are the tyres that you take with you into the race.
No way, dude.
Yes way, dude. I know, it sounds scary, but it isn't, so don't worry. I'll now be talking you through qualifying strategy throughout all 3 of the stages. I'll give you some tips and guide you newer drivers through the whole entire thing. And all the tips I'm about to give you apply to every single qualifying session throughout every single racetrack. And by the end of this video, you're going to have a solid idea on how to approach qualifying every single time. Now let's pretend you're starting your racing session. You've gone in and now you're looking at this screen. Here you can choose the tyre distribution you want for your quali and race. For pretty much every track, you'll be choosing a balanced tyre setup. You can now choose softer tyre setup here, where you get more softs, or a harder tyre setup, where you have more hards. But for 50% races, balance is all you need in my opinion, so perhaps go for a soft setup in places like Monaco, since you'd rather have more softs just in case you break a wing off, or if there's multiple safety cars, that sort of thing. Choose whatever you like, but for the sake of this video, I'm choosing balanced. Press X and let the quali session load. Now that the game is loaded, I would like to officially welcome you to your vehicle and to Q1. Here you are in your beautiful racing car, chilling out in the pits. Now don't get too excited and drive straight out. There's a few things that you want to look out before you go out. So while you're in this view, you can go out on track from here, but we're not going to do that right away. We're going to press square and check out the session information screen. This session info screen is your best friend during qualifying, and no, your best friend is not Jeff. At the top there, you'll see 5 icons. We're going to go through each of these and see what they do. Amazing. So from left to right, the first icon there is like 2 square things and a magnifying glass. When you're in this part of the screen, this is known as the overview submenu. So when you're in this submenu, you'll be able to see a few things. Here we can see drivers out on track and where they are on track. This little checkered flag icon shows where the start finish line is. You can see what track and which quali session you're in, the time remaining in the session, the track temperature, air temperature, track status, and how many cars are out on track. And you can see both the quali weather and the race weather. To see the race weather, just press the triangle button and you'll see the race weather. Press the triangle button again and you're going to go back and see what the qualifying weather is. To the right of that is the spanner and screwdriver icon, which is the vehicle management submenu. This is where you can choose your car setups as well as the tyre you want to use for your next qualifying run. You can select what condition of tyres to look at, so wets for wet driving and dry for dry driving. Yeah, that's pretty simple. And to the right of that is a stopwatch icon, which is the timing submenu. This submenu will show all the drivers' fastest lap times and their sector times for that fastest lap in that quali session. It also shows the gap between each driver's fastest lap times, how many laps the driver has gone around the track in that quali stage, and it also shows what tyre each driver set their fastest lap times on. On the far right hand side of the screen there, you'll see the status of the driver as well as what each icon signifies down there. Flicking it over once more to the video camera icon, that's going to show you a live TV feed submenu. So in this submenu, you can watch drivers going around the track either in the cinematic view or by pressing the next camera button and watch the overhead view. You can switch between what driver you want to watch by using the left and right arrows on your D-pad or your steering wheel. It also shows their lap times, sector times, speed through the speed trap, and their position on the speed trap leaderboard. And every track has a speed trap represented as the yellow dot icon on the minimap while you're driving. And it also shows their current standing in the championship as well as the total points they've accrued in the championship. This isn't going to matter to you for online racing, but it's going to matter for you for not online racing, which is also known as single player. And to the right once more is an icon that looks like a door opening showing an arrow for the way out or something. If you're in a single player game, you can skip ahead from practice sessions 1, 2, and 3, as well as quali and the race. However, this submenu will not show up in a multiplayer race as shown here. Alright, now I'm going to take you through a step-by-step guide on what to do through each qualifying stage. So as you can see here, we're at the Spielberg circuit in Austria. As soon as you're in the session, go into the session info screen and check out the weather report for the race. So you can see here that we've been blessed with fine and sunny conditions for the race, which is awesome. Once you've had a quick squeeze and identified what the weather is going to be like for the race, now you need to flick it over to see what the weather is going to be like in the quali. So in this case, it looks like Q1 is going to be riddled with heavy rain, which is shown by the cloud with 3 raindrops. By the time Q2 comes around, which is during the 20th minute, it'll still be raining, but it's light rain, which is shown by the cloud with 1 raindrop. and it showed the 30th minute being light rain but overcast in the 45th minute. So I can't be 100% sure at this stage, but it is possible that the weather in Q3 will be dry. This is actually one of the more interesting quali sessions that I've seen. As you can imagine, this is all valuable information to know because, as you probably know, with dynamic weather turned on, anything can happen during qualifying and the race, in fact, as you can see what I've just shown you. But now that we're done knowing that the weather is dry during the race and wet for Q1, Q2, and possibly Q3, it's time to choose my tyre and my setup. Now, because the race was in the dry but the quali was in the wet, I decided to load up my dry setup and give myself a little bit more front wing to give myself more traction in the wet. I only changed the front wing for reasons I'll explain shortly. So I threw on the wet tyres and away we went. If Q1 was in the dry, what I personally do is choose my first set of soft tyres and smash out one lap, go back into the pits with plenty of time to do one more lap just in case I screwed up my first lap. Well, now it's time to head out onto the track and post a time. In F1, there's this thing called Parc Fermé rules. If you leave the pits in Q1, the setup that you have on the car is the setup you are stuck with for the rest of quali and for the race. The only two things that you're allowed to change for the rest of the qualifying and your race is your front wing and your fuel levels. So when I go into the race, I'm going to be changing my front wing from 7 back down to the dry setting of 3. Otherwise, the car's just going to get eaten up on the straights. So be absolutely 100% certain before you leave that your setup is the one you want to race on. Because as I said, you can't change your setup once you've left the pits except for your front wing and your fuel levels. So during Q1, I screwed up the penultimate turn around Austria, but still managed to set a competitive lap time. So after this lap, I drove my car into the pits, hung out with Toto Wolff, and had a cup of tea and a nice chat. Nice guy, that guy. But as I thought I was safe in the session, the weather changed to light rain, and so the track started to clear up a bit, and I had to go out and set another time on intermediate tyres, which in this case, I managed to do a not bad job. In Q2, a few interesting things happen. Let's say Q2 was dry and I managed to post a fast enough lap time to get into Q3's top 10. I would then have to start the race on whatever tyre I posted my fastest lap in Q2 on. So for example, if I posted my fastest lap time on mediums and got into Q3, I would then have to start the race on that set of mediums. Same thing goes for softs, same thing goes for hards. This is where tyre strategy comes into play. Generally speaking, I personally like to start the race on the harder compound, so mediums if I can manage it, as on higher fuel loads, your softs tend to lose grip a little too fast for my liking, and you don't really get the pace out of them. But if you start the race on mediums, you can do a decently long stint, decent lap times, and switch over to the softs later on in the race, and really start pumping in those lap times when your car is lighter once it's burnt off some fuel. At the same time, starting the race on softs limits your pit strategy a little too much for me. Basically, you're stuck with doing a short stint on softs and a super long stint on hards, or do a two-stopper and do like a soft medium soft or a soft soft medium combination. Whereas if you start the race on mediums, you'll have more wiggle room on what tyre strategy you want to go for. So you can be a little bit more flexible and choose to do a one-stopper and throw on hards, or if something happens like a safety car or you get damage on your car, you can choose to do a two-stopper and throw on some mediums, then softs, or softs, then softs, again depending on the track you're racing on. This means you can finish the race on faster tyres, if you so choose, with less fuel in the car, which means the car will go faster. Vroom, vroom. Anyways, in my opinion, I prefer to have flexible racing strategy and be able to choose whether or not I want to do a one-stopper or change over to a two-stopper without compromising my pace too much. Now, because Q2 in this particular quali session is wet, I have no choice but to qualify on my inters. But that also means that if I do get into Q3, I have a free choice of what dry tyres I can throw on to start the race. Spoiler alert, I get into Q3 and start the race on mediums. However, if this was a dry quali and I didn't manage to make it into Q3, I would have a free choice of tyres to put on my car for the start. The same thing goes for those who got kicked out in Q1. They also get to choose what tyres they want to start on in the race. However, and I'm just going to stress it one more time, if this was a dry session, whatever tyre that you have set your fastest lap on, that is the tyre you're going to take into the race if you manage to get into Q3, unless the race is in the wet. Alright, so if that doesn't make any sense, read what I've just put up on the screen there for you. And yeah, or just rewind back and listen to the explanation again. However you like to learn, I'm trying to cater for all types of learning, whether you prefer to learn by reading or learn by hearing. I'm pretty restricted to what type of learning that I can give you people. I'm not a fucking professional fucking person fucking. After Q2, I got into Q3, and interestingly enough, Q3's weather was overcast but dry as well. If you do manage to get into Q3 and it's dry, throw on some softs and smash out the fastest time possible. Here I only did one lap and managed to get a start in second behind Ham Sandwich. Now, if you remembered earlier in Q1, I used my dry setup for quali on a wet track because the race was going to be racing in the dry. And since Parc Fermé rules are turned on, I can't change anything after I leave the pits in Q1 apart from my front wing and fuel load. However, before I went out in Q1, I had increased my wing angle to 7 to provide better traction in the wet. Oh yeah, and that is a pro tip for all you newer drivers. However, now that it's going to be dry for Q3, I remembered to change my front wing back down to 3, which is my original front wing settings for a dry race. So if you did what I did and change your front wing for a wet run with a dry setup, make sure you change it back to what you originally had it set to when the track is actually dry. Otherwise, you're probably going to regret it in the race. On a side note, yes, I did choose a dry setup for a wet quali, but I would have chosen a wet setup in a dry quali had the race been in the wet. Why? Because it's better to be slower in quali and quick in the race than it is to be quick in the quali and be slow in the race. Another pro tip for you fuckers. So now we're on to Q3, fucking 17 minutes into this video. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe because this took a bit of effort to get sorted. And I did it all for you newer drivers, especially you lovely lads at EGN. Anyways, in this session it was actually dry, so I threw on some softs and smashed out a mad lap time. There's not much else to it. Hammer out the fastest lap you possibly can on a set of softs. Now, I'm going to give you guys a really quick hint on tyres. Let's say the entire quali session was in the dry. My standard quali session would go like this. In Q1, use this set of softs. In Q2, use this set of mediums. And in Q3, use this set or this set of softs. But you must never use this set of softs at all during qualifying. The reason why is there's some type of bug in the game. So when you go into the pits for your first set of new softs during the race, for whatever fucked up reason, Jeff likes to throw on this set of softs first, no matter how fucked up you made those tyres. Legit. Even if they're at 50% wear, and only after the first pit stop onto softs will Jeff cycle through to the other set of softs if you stop for softs again. Fuck, that was a tongue twister. So to get around this, avoid using those softs during quali. Like I said earlier in the video, Jeff is not your friend. Fuck Jeff. Probably works with Ferrari with his shit strategy ideas. Fucking idiot. The very last thing I want to add is during every stage of quali, if you're on your out lap warming up your tyres or your in lap after you finish the quali lap, make sure you stay out of the way of the guys trying to post the time on their flying laps, as shown in this video right now. Try to leave as much room as you can in front of you for when you want to post your own flying lap, and stay out of the way of the guys who are on a flying lap when you are not. Pretty simple, get out of the way. It's like yielding to blue flags. That's it, just stay off the racing line, let them pass you, and continue on your way. Oh yeah, actually, and one more thing before I go, as more cars go around the track during qualifying, and the race as well, the track starts to become rubbered in and the grip levels begin to rise. So sometimes it's a good idea to wait a little while and let some people set their lap times earlier in the quali session so you can take advantage of the better grip levels during each quali stage. And that's it. That's Flysorter's guide on how to qualify in Formula 1. Sorry it was such a long video, guys. I didn't realize how much was involved in qualifying until I really started looking into it. But at least now you new EGN racers, well actually all new racers to F1 now better understand how quali works. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And also follow Captain Kino on Twitter. And have a nice day, you sexy fucks. Peace!